There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fifth Dimension of Twilight Zone podcast. I am, of course, your host, Nick, and once again, we are back to talk the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's favorite, podcast, even though he's been gone for about 50 years now. It's we're here to talk a new episode. I don't know. I enjoyed this episode, but we'll get into that and see what other people think. I'm here, of course, with my two co-hosts, which, of course, are Triv from Trivial Theater and Jake from Jacob Anders Reviews. How the hell are you guys? How's the night going? Welcome back. We're back.
I'm welcome to the applause. Nobody's applauding. Hi.
They're too busy breaking down doors.
Yeah, what pipes?
So yeah,
Trying to applaud.
yeah, so stuck to your sides.
Yep. Basically. Doing the funky chicken.
There you go.
No.
So it's gonna be an interesting episode to talk about. It's one that hits in the same themes as something like Monsters Who Do on Maple Street, but of course that episode that we're gonna be talking about is season 3, episode 3, called The Shelter, directed by Lamont Johnson, written by Rod Serling. Production code 4803, air date September 29th, 1961. Stars Larry Gates, Jack Albertson, Sandy Kenyon, Peggy Stewart, Michael Burns, and Joseph Bernard. So this is an episode that has garnered a lot of acclaim for the Twilight Zone. It's an episode that is very highly ranked on a lot of people's rankings when it comes to the Twilight Zone. And Triv, I know you said you in the past have heard really good things. I think you said you may have even liked this episode. But going into it this time with the critical eye, were you expecting it to like it as much, or how did you guys feel overall about what you thought about this episode going in?
I had high expectations for it regardless, because it was probably top 20 for me.
Okay.
Just because of the message of it and the way that it delivers it. And like it is, when we talk about episodes that are in a small space, sometimes those are the episodes where they do the most with it, and I think this one definitely reinforces that whole thing. So yeah, it's a fantastic episode from what I remember. Like, it really hits in a way that a lot of them don't, and the tonal changes that happen throughout this, they're stark and they come at you quick, and they go from one thing to the next, and those ideas of neighbors and kind of the idea of those things that underneath the surface hit hard with this one.
Now, Jacob, with you, I know you mentioned last week that you actually slightly remember this episode.
I
Is
do.
this still true?
I do, and I did. And I remembered even what happened.
Ooh.
More or less. I didn't remember but I remembered like how the outcome and everything. So that was fun. Been a while since I remembered an episode from beginning to end. But yeah, I like this episode. I remember liking it. I'm assuming that's why I remember it so well, is because I liked it back then too. But I like a lot of the execution, the message. I think the message it has in the end, which we'll get to it, was without sounding too pretentious, I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah.
And I really like this episode. So I'm very interested to see where it ends up on our list, like more so than usual.
65.
Right.
Oh. It's got to be higher than that.
64.
Oh, okay. Well, there's that.
Okay.
We may be having some conversations at the end.
Good.
But yeah, so it's an episode that definitely deals with what is that scare? What is that called?
Red Scare.
Mass hysteria.
Red Scare. Yeah, mass hysteria. It's definitely something that
Dogs
hits
and
pretty...
cats living together.
Mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria.
Yep.
Yes, this man has no dick. Anyways, but yeah, it deals with very much of what the 60s was dealing with like the whole the ideas of like the bombs and the UFOs and things that could make build bomb shelters and stuff like that. And of course, this is an episode that was hugely parodied in an episode of The Simpsons called Bart's Comet, which is of course about a bomb shelter that was built and of course a comet that's going to destroy Springfield. But the episode in essence opens up with a birthday party for our main character, or one of the main characters, named Dr. Bill Stockton. And I don't know how you guys feel about this like setup, because it's interesting to see you have a group of people. Of course, Jack Albertson. I made a joke that Jack Albertson is going to steal the bomb shelter, like he stole the golden ticket from Willy Wonka, because of course he played Grandpa in Willy Wonka. But basically they're celebrating his birthday.
Which one was he?
He was the guy. He was the guy like with like really bad hair, and he had like he's the one that's more sympathetic. One of the first characters that goes down to the bomb shelter to try to appease the main guy that has the bomb shelter.
Was he the best friend guy?
Yeah, he plays Jerry Harlow.
Jerry. Oh, he's the guy who went down and like when he was getting the water and stuff, and he like picked up the water and he dropped. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
his best friend guy was the guy with the black hair.
Well, yeah,
the one that looked like Rod Serling.
Huh?
A little bit. The one that looked like Rod Serling a little bit.
Did he look like Rod Serling? I guess maybe, possibly. I thought he looked Spanish.
Yeah.
Oh no,
that's very progressive for this day and age.
But yeah, there was one guy that I thought looked kind of like Rod Serling a little bit. But I mean, it's an episode that also can be very prescient for today, with like the civil discourse and all that kind of stuff that just impacts civilization when all hell breaks loose and when everybody goes down to their animalistic urges and logic of thinking and stuff like that. But they're having a birthday party. Everything's hunky-dory. They're all celebrating. Everything's good, blah, 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 blah. And of course, the asshole kid kind of has to come into the mix and say, "Hey, everyone, there's a radio station," and the radio stations went silent, and there's a, whatever, and they find out it's a UFO. And I was waiting for the monsters to do on Maple Street to happen again. But basically, they all freak out and, run off to their own houses. And of course, our main family has apparently like 1,000 like empty jugs just laying around that they can fill with water. And
they fill like 6 of them, and that's kind of it.
Well, yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask. Is actually, I forgot. We should probably no. Before that point is actually when Rod Serling does his opening narration. But actually, let me ask you this. Okay, so they're filling these jugs of water, and they run out of water. Is that something that you think happened? Like they only had a certain amount of water that they could produce from, or is it just they wanted to make it more tense?
That's actually well, they actually say like when disaster strikes, you're supposed to fill your tub with water, but the problem is that you overload the system, and even though there's probably more water available, people are using it too much. It's like when there's like water shortages, like so much that the system can only handle so much, so people freak out. That's kind of what would cause that as much as anything else, I would assume.
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess you're supposed to take it as like, the end is nigh. Maybe the water plant is down or something. I don't know.
Yeah. One real quick thing. This is really random, but at the very beginning, and I'm normally not one to pick up on music cues as well as you two do, but like the discordant like happy birthday that they go through at the very beginning, I thought that was really interesting.
It was almost like a Christmas song.
Yeah, but it was happy birthday, but it was like really weirdly whimsical at the start of this episode that's about death and destruction.
Yeah, and your family and kids crying.
I mean, I don't know exactly how not exactly how you feel about this episode yet, Drew, but it's interesting. It's a nice like little piece of like not kind of, I guess maybe a little bit of foreshadowing on the nature of like how foreboding it is and how eerie and creepy it comes off as. Because this, I don't know what you guys, but did you notice the street is very similar to like a lot of the streets that they use in the Twilight Zone, for instance, for like the monsters do on Maple Street? It looks like the exact
same. The same street.
It is the same.
Like MGM Studios or something like that, wherever they filmed it. So I think the fact that they use that like very happy-go-lucky birthday music is actually a testament to just how eerie and dark and disturbing this episode is going to be, because you have to set in motion the idea of like, as a civilized society, and we talk, you guys can agree with me or disagree with me, I don't care. But the idea of like even today with like everything that has been discoursed and like what is going on in America, over in England, wherever you want to talk about what's going on, it's the same thing. Once a piece of the dichotomy of human emotions and stuff like that falls out of whack, everything just completely collapses upon itself. And here it's just a small portion of a small town street in the middle of America or New York, close to New York or whatever, in New York. And yeah, I find that interesting, just how quickly everything devolves into, you know, the monkeys beating at each other, beating the hell out of each other with the bones in 2001 or something like that. So
shows how fragile our society is.
Oh yeah.
Can be, at least.
Right.
What is the sword of
our civilized
Damocles
society.
kind of like where it's hanging by a thread, basically?
Yeah. Yeah, you can snap in like a second. But before we get into like the nuts and bolts of what exactly happens, I'll let you go ahead and read the opening narration, Jacob, which actually I thought was pretty cool how it starts out.
What you are about to watch is a nightmare. It's not meant to be prophetic. It need not happen. It's the fervent and urgent prayer of all men of goodwill that it never shall happen. Jesus Christ, this is written. it's written really well, but he places his words in odd places anyway, or I just can't read. Anyway, let's start there. It's fervent and urgent prayer of all men of goodwill that it never shall happen. But in this place, in this moment, it does happen. This is the Twilight Zone. It's not very long, but like his word placement is correct, but it's very interesting.
I like how he uses this is the Twilight Zone. Like the world that goes cuckoo is the fucking, like, you know how that expression is, we're living in the fucking Twilight Zone and shit. That's what I like about that wordplay right there, is like, this is what this is real life. This is the fucking Twilight Zone, and we're about to play part in it and stuff like that. But what I really like about this setup is it's funny, the idea of like, and I don't know if you guys agree, there's always that one person that thinks ahead, whether it be, you know, like for instance, like a hurricane comes through, or, you know, Triv, you live in Tornado Alley and stuff like that, where these major events will happen at some point, and there's always that one or two people that are always ahead. They have like the generators and the water and all that stuff. You know, they prepare a little bit after the whatever the event's going to happen. But then you have the people like, you know, that are just like too stupid or too slow or just not thinking ahead because they don't think this will ever happen, or the ones that are freaking out and running around like chickens with their heads cut off and stuff like that. But like here, Bill Stockton's family, his wife is freaking out. She's like, why are we doing this? Why are we going to save our child? What does it matter? Everybody's going to die and we're going to be here. But like, what do you think about that? Just the hysteria of like a family that's still prepared, but they still have their fears, and the eventual of like the townsfolk or the block folk and stuff like that coming in the mix, like that kind of setup.
Well, one thing too, when they're celebrating the birthday, like they're kind of doing the whole good-natured ribbing thing to Bill because it's his birthday, and they're like, oh, you know, that storm shelter, and we'll forgive you for, you know, banging on at all hours and cement trucks in the area and all that kind of stuff. And when they part ways, obviously, it's, you know, there is that thing about controlling your fear in front of other people, you know, regardless of how you're feeling inside.
That was really cool how they foreshadowed that in the whole thing in a really like fluid way. How they're all kind of like Trev said, ribbing him, like roasting him about, you know, this dumb guy, he's making a friggin' fallout shelter down here. You know that's never going to happen as the sirens go off. You know, and I thought I like that. That was a good little bit of storytelling there.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how quickly it devolves to. What's interesting is how every family runs off and they eventually come back. But I was really intrigued by the fact that your first thought is to go back home, but then when the fear starts settling in, you realize that you don't have a second option to the first option, or the first option is not good and the second option comes into effect. That's when they all start coming back to the Bill's house. And he's already prepared. His wife's freaking out. He's telling his wife that, you know, this is our son, you know, we have to survive for him and stuff like that. And then that's when Jack Albertson's character comes down to the shelter and is like begging. He's like, I have this family. We need to stay here. He's like, it's a 10-foot room. You know, the air can only last for a certain amount of people. You know, we only have a certain amount of water. Well, we can figure it out. We can not eat your food. I'm like, you know, at some point something's going to happen where they're going to, kill each other or something like that. Then of course the other families start coming down. But I don't know. That's pretty interesting stuff to me. Kind of interesting storytelling aspects. But what do you guys think?
It's kind of like and not that the Titanic is end all be all of movies, but like when they they had all the half full boats and there's all those people kind of thrashing and in the middle of the water and stuff, and they're like, well, we need to go help them. It's like, if we go back there, they're gonna pull us down because they're gonna be panicked. There's that, you need to help, but logically, what can you do in that case?
Well, let me ask you guys this. Do you think Bill was justified in his logic and reasoning, or do you think other families? Well, no, that's what I'm asking. Like, this is like one of those things where you had the bomb shelter and stuff like that, but do you feel it's justified to act like that? Or like, do you feel that it's going to be like a situation of time enough at last where, something happens that ruins the whole experience? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting way to think about it, I guess. I don't know.
He's absolutely justified. I mean, it sucks. It's a shitty decision. It's not a decision, honestly. Like he said, and I really liked how the show did that, how his wife was like losing her shit. You could tell he was too a bit, but he was like keeping it together. That's what you do. And like, she's like, fuck it. What's it going to be worth? When everything's gone, if they drop these bombs, we'll come out and what? Just bodies and rubble? What kind of world is that? What's the point? And like, they hear their kid and he's like, that's why. That's the point. That's why we have to endure. That's why we have to keep our shit together and keep on going. So yeah, it's a pretty easy decision at that point. I mean, it would suck, having your friends and family. And one of them is, apparently, I didn't realize that I saw on the text I had pulled up in front of me. One of the guys, Jerry, I think it said, was his brother-in-law. Yeah. So I guess.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah.
That brings it. I didn't realize that either, but that brings it another whole can of worms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jerry Harlow, Bill's brother-in-law. So yeah, you got your friends and family, your extended friends and family outside this door that are begging to come in, but it's just you can't let them in, because
absolutely
you let them in and everybody dies. And that's a shitty situation to be in. And that's one of the things that makes it so interesting. And we've seen this scenario in other works of fiction since. I don't know if this was the first one. This is the first one I know, the oldest one I know of. But that's a really compelling story arc right there, is to just have all these people that begging to get in, and of course where it goes. But that's just like tough. That is an impossible situation, because there's there's one answer, and it's just don't open the door, and it sucks, but it is what it is.
And the way that, and I guess I misheard, but wasn't there a thing too where the door had like a lock on it too, where it wouldn't open? Like once it was shut? I thought he said something like that.
He said it wasn't going to. I don't know if he ever said there was specifically like a time lock or something like that, but he just said once that door's closed, it's not going to open for this amount of time. I don't know if, like I said, it's automatic, or if he just means we're not going to open it.
Right.
For however long. So
he just get his money back on that door.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that door.
Yeah.
I think all of this is moot point, because they were all fucked if they got in that room. We're going to do them no good.
Yep.
Right. I mean, let me ask you guys this: do you guys think about this kind of stuff? Like, like I was saying earlier, Triv, you live in a very tornado alley place. Jacob, I don't know like what your main like situation is. Like, is it still hurricane stuff, or is it tornadoes, or like us is hurricanes? That's Florida, but this is like your area.
I would say not hurricanes. We're far. I'm far enough away from the coast, a couple hours away from the coast, so I don't have to worry about those. Tornadoes, we get them around here, but I would say, hey, we don't really get hit with them in this area very much. But then 2 months ago we got hit with a devastating tornado that destroyed the city. So I guess tornadoes. If the bombs ever go off, they ain't dropping them out here.
They will here to get rid of our fucking state.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough people that live out this way for them to like justify dropping a nuke out here.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you guys think about this kind of stuff? Are you prepared for this kind of stuff if it were to happen? I mean, like I said, these things, not this situation, but I'm saying this idea of like how things go to shit really quickly, because you saw it. I remember very clearly seeing it like Katrina, seeing it like Miami, when Miami got hit with that really bad tornado or that really bad hurricane Andrew. I mean, do you guys think about this stuff? Do you prepare for this kind of stuff? Like, how do you?
Yeah. And like you said, Katrina, man, I was working in the hotel business when Katrina hit, I saw
Yeah, me
how
too.
fucking crazy people could get because we were FEMA approved and we got a lot of people from down there. And yeah, the stories they had from the Astrodome were insane.
Oh, I
And the
bet.
people,
Yeah.
once they got there, they were fucking insane. Just people, it's kind of like this episode. I mean, this episode is kind of like a condensed version of it, but you like, break one of those cogs in the wheel and everything people just fall the fuck apart. It's kind of scary. But as far as like nowadays, hell yeah, I'm afraid. Or not afraid, but I mean, hell yeah, think about
You're
it. I mean,
prepared.
that's why I'm a gun owner. I mean, I hope nothing really happens. I mean, realistically, I'm like, probably nothing's really going to happen, but who knows, man? I look at all the stuff that's going on in this world, but especially just our
Yeah.
country right now. If you had told us in, less than 8 years ago, if you had sat down and said, hey, this scenario, it's a fucking South Park episode. I mean,
It really is.
it truly is, honestly. But I mean, if you told us this stuff 8, 9, 10 years ago, we'd be like, yeah, well, that's crazy. But we're
Yeah.
living it, man. I mean, so who knows where it's going to go? So yeah, think about this stuff. I don't have a shelter of any kind. I mean, this room I'm in is 100% underground, but
Right.
it's definitely something like my wife. She's real paranoid about everything, and she wants me to build a shelter. She wants an underground secret shelter that we can get to from a secret room inside the house.
All I can say, Jacob, if a hurricane comes through, make sure it's prepared and safe from alligators, because I've watched a
Also
movie called
good.
Crawl. Yeah, I watched a movie called Crawl, and them alligators are no joke.
Hey, I live on a lake
Oh yeah,
that apparently
Lake Placid, part
has
3.
had, it's like it's not very often that they're there, but apparently there have been alligators or alligator in there before. Not crocodiles, but I think you guys got
Right.
crocodiles down there, right?
yeah. I know. Okay, driving home or driving to work one night is like I don't know, 11 o'clock at night. Turning down a road that leads to the back of Disney, there was an alligator, probably 20 feet long, probably several
Wow.
100 pounds, just
Damn.
walking across the intersection, stops right in the middle of the intersection, and just I'm like, holy fuck. And then of course there was that incident where the kid got snatched by an alligator at Disney, which was unfortunate. So yes, there are definitely alligators, but prepare yourself for Crawl, because that definitely is a real thing. So
We don't have those up here. We just have giant catfish.
well, yeah, let's talk about them. The fucking catfish.
Those fucking
freaking-
hey, the ones that hang out at like dams and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, those things get like as big as like small cars.
I wouldn't be surprised. Plus everything
Right.
that's in the Mississippi. Oof.
Yeah.
I have parents that are they're kind of doom preppery, which it's that fine line, between like being prepared and expecting like the world
yeah.
to end at any
Conspiracy
minute.
theorists.
Yeah, and that there is a fine line between those two things, and
I've
it's
got
a
some
hard
stuff.
it's a hard balance, because it melts into everything, and it goes from preparedness to like that weird level. And I think that I prepare because I like to say area of the world, there's monster, we get some pretty decent snowstorms, there's a chance of power outages from really big thunderstorms or tornadoes or things like that, wind. And we had a derecho a couple of years ago that knocked out basically everything on this side of the state.
That
for
shit was
like,
insane to watch.
Oh my
I feel so
God.
bad for you and Jared.
yeah, it was crazy. But yeah,
Um,
no service or of any kind for like almost a week. But it's that line of preparedness versus too much.
yeah.
I'm with you.
I mean,
I'm gonna say I'm prepared. I'm not
And
like
that's where you need to be. Like you should have, like they said, we've got stuff for 2 weeks. If you're gonna have, the the bottled water, make sure to have like a your phone charged at all times, have some kind of a backup
Yeah.
battery thing.
I might be a crazy one.
Having a generator, depending upon where you are.
I got a shit ton of canned food stored
But that's
away.
not bad. That's not a bad thing. Having
Oh,
stuff that,
That's just
I
me.
mean, if you go broke, you have food to eat. So
I've got
Well,
all
that
that.
and-
Animals. I have livestock. I also am in the process of building a hydroelectric plant in my backyard off my lake, so I
If it
can produce my
works.
own energy. Oh my God, am I the crazy person?
No, I don't think you
Just
are. You have
don't-
the space. If you have the space and the ability to do it, I say more power to you.
Yeah,
But
we're
I'm
going
just
off
saying,
grid.
I'm just saying that there are there is that fine line, you know. There's people that, you know, go too far with it. You know, they allow it. You should be aware. You should be prepared, because you don't know when something is going to go down, and it's important. But where it consumes every aspect of your life,
Yeah,
you know,
I've known somebody like that.
right. No, I have too. Some of them are very close to me, but it's that like Bill in this, you know, he said it, you know, he was like, well, you know, it's, you could, you know, take a couple of hours a week away from barbecues and family outings and all that kind of stuff to do this thing, you know.
Well,
Mhm.
I mean, we'll talk about that later on, but that's a very important line what you just said, because
I know.
when everything ends, it's like you're just shaking your head. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But I mean, you know, kind of going back into the episode, that's the thing. That's the reason I was asking, because once Jack Albertson's character of Jerry is turned away, we're reintroduced to, I think it was Marty. I think Marty's next, if I remember. He's the one that's from he's an immigrant from another country,
That,
or
or he
something like
might be
that.
from like his parents might have been. They don't really specifically say,
Yeah,
because there's no
yeah,
like, he
there's
doesn't really have an accent to, you know,
right.
speak of.
But as we
Not the
learn,
skinny guy?
No, it'd be
no,
the
he's
guy
the one
with
with the
black hair.
mustache.
Oh yeah. See, I told you.
No, the skinny guy's the racist one, as we learn. It's crazy. It's crazy what people will devolve to when
That
just
skinny guy
shit goes.
reminded me of somebody, and I could not remember who. Yeah, like a
It
different
kind of
actor.
made me think of John Hanna, the Brendan Fraser's like
Yes,
brother-in-law
that's it.
guy. Yeah, he
Yes,
totally looks like
he did
him.
look like John Hanna.
Yeah.
That's who it was. The whole time I was like, who does that guy? That guy reminds me of somebody. I knew it was like somebody else because it was somebody like years later, like in newer
Yep.
films.
It's,
It is it's John Hanna.
Sandy Kenyon, who, trying to look at what he was in. He was in Gunsmoke, Virginian. Man, you know what's funny is a lot of these people were in westerns before this.
But
Oh
westerns were
yeah,
kind of
Westerns were
that
the
big
comic book
thing.
movies of
yeah.
the
Yeah,
60s and 70s
absolutely.
or 50s.
And then James Coburn was the radio announcer. I forgot to
Oh, I
mention
didn't know
that.
And he
Yeah,
was
he
also
was the guy on the radio.
the main guy down the way in the old, is it the old man in the computer?
Yeah, the old man in the cave. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that episode too.
it's a very good episode.
But yeah, like that's the thing where they come in and they have a baby and they go down and they try to reason with Bill, and Bill's like, no, I can't do this. And then of course the
I like
most
how they use their
unhinged
baby as like a
leverage.
bargaining chip. They're like,
You know,
I
they
got a
don't,
3-month-old.
in the grand scheme though of all the people, and there's levels to the level of douchebaggery that goes down. Like I
Yeah.
think that Marty and his wife and kids, they're kind of the least, like,
That's his best friend too, isn't it?
yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I think
Yeah.
I think they should have had like a one of those like things you would put money in or something like that at a bank. They should have just said, we'll take the baby, and they just open up the little hatch right there, stick the baby on it, just pulls it into the door so the baby can be in with them. So I thought that was kind of funny, but
That was one thing too. The whole time Bill keeps telling them, you know, go to the safest place that you have, gather your food, gather your
Yeah.
water, keep your head on straight.
and instead they're like, no, let us in. No, we
Right.
won't let you in.
Anarchy.
It's funny too, because even though it's an episode about like we talked about just the whole fear and stuff like that, the funny thing is it's only 24 minutes or 25 minutes long, and so they have to devolve into like crazy wild people in like a short span. So you have to kind of have to like throw a little bit of realism out the window when it comes to this episode, because they devolve like that real quickly, which it would take a little bit longer than I think that to devolve, and maybe it wouldn't, but it happens.
Do you
so
remember
quickly.
when there was like toilet paper shortages and people went from like normal to like insane in
That's what I'll
like
say.
seconds?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that's true.
This isn't
You
too
already
far
proved me wrong,
fetched,
I get it.
It's really
we were
not.
out of, in the grand scheme of things, look back to the beginning of all that mess. What were we out of? Toilet paper? Hand sanitizer? I mean,
You know
those
what's
two
funny
things, people
is
lost their fucking minds. Look,
It's
I
crazy.
never ran out of toilet paper. There was I remember going to the stores and it was like pretty empty, but I was always able to find somewhere. I never got to the point where it was like, we have no toilet paper. But like me, myself, in my house, the stores were, but we were able to find it here or there. We may buy. But dude, if I did, I mean, it's not the most, what do you call it? It's not the most
Install a
glamorous
bidet.
thing. You got hoses, water, or fuck, get a fucking
You got leaves.
a towel or a hand towel and then clean that fucker off and put it in the washing machine. I mean, like I said, not the most glamorous and not something you want to do, but if you're there,
Absolutely. Did you
you
guys
don't lose
ever
your fucking
see?
mind.
Well, but people do because reasons. Did you ever see Supernatural? Like they have an episode that like takes them to like the apocalypse, and the one guy is like their kind of like stock boy thing. Like he's the master quarter. I guess it'd be quartermaster. Like the guy that kind of handles all their inventory and supplies and stuff.
Bobby, or was this when DJ Qualls had taken over?
This was the guy that ends up being God.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the dude, he's like, "Damn it! If I would have known that toilet paper was going to be such a commodity, man, that thing became more valuable than gold."
It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, that's exactly what's happening here. The idea of like a bomb shelter, the idea of like, they delve into like, oh, we should pick one family to stay in, and they start like blaming each other for everything. It's just it
I like
happens
how they
so
also
quick,
start referring to it as their shelter.
right?
Like
right.
for the
It's
block, they're
not-
like, "This is our shelter." No, motherfuckers, it's his. He's the one who didn't go to the goddamn barbecues here or there. You should have made your own shelter. And I got to give Bill, that's his name is, Bill, some props. He's better than me because they are always roasting him and giving him shit. I know you cut you off, sorry, but
No,
all
you're
that talking shit, and then it happens, and they're losing their ever fucking minds. I wouldn't have been able to help myself at least once. Be like, I mean, I told you guys, you could have done this too. Except for the guy without a basement, but I mean, you could have done the same thing, but here we are.
Yep.
You know what would have been funny? If like they did like a flashback, like a Wayne's World, they're like, and they're at like a barbecue, and you see the guy digging the dirt for the bomb shelter, and they're like, what is he doing? Or I don't know, some wacky thing. Let's have a burger, and
Oh
then
my
they're
God.
gonna do like, son of a bitch.
How was that fucking burger, Phil? Huh? Tastes good now? How's it doing?
Are you
Tastes
shitting that burger out
good.
now? Oh, that's the other thing that made me laugh in a very serious episode is they're all arguing up in the kitchen or the dining room, and the kids are just picking at the cake and eating it.
Yeah, the two
Yeah,
kids.
they're just like,
I saw that. They're just like, I wonder if that was like if that was directed, or if the kids were just, doing weird shit on set. They're just bored and they're like, "Oh, look, candy."
oh, you mean like the kid Back to the Future is pointing at his,
Yeah,
he
I
has to go to the
gotta
bathroom.
But yeah,
But yeah, I mean, the kind of act break happens right there. But like, I mean, what do you guys think about this like devolving into madness where, they're like arguing with one another, and they're like, Marty, you should go down there and talk to him and reason with him, and they're like, you don't do that. I want to go down there and reason with him, and they're like, they all three of them go down there and try to reason with him, and apparently they didn't have enough audio mics or booms or whatever, because all of a sudden like it sounds like he's actually in the door or whatever. It's like very muffled. It's very interesting.
I remember when I saw this 20 years ago or whatever it was, I thought it was really cool. It was neat. And I was like, oh yeah, I enjoyed it. And I think at that point, I was probably subconsciously thinking kind of like you were a minute ago, where it's like, it's the compressed, not timeline, but they take the story, they compress it down, but this could happen over time. After 2020, I'm like, this is the most realistic episode we have seen yet.
Absolutely so.
Like, this is exactly what the fuck would happen. Like, this is not an exaggeration in the slide. It'd probably be worse. Honestly, there'd be somebody out there, they'd be killing each other so that they can eliminate their competition. We have experienced similar thing.
Absolutely. And you do kind of get the kind of levels of insanity too. You've got the guy that's very calm, even when they're above ground, they're obviously dealing with that stress and that fear, but they're kind of clamping it down to hold it together for the people that they care about. And then you get like the people that are sympathetic, but they're still like, oh, hey, we got a 3-month-old. And then you get the complete and utter asshole that goes, well, you and your kind and all that bullshit. And,
Yeah, that's some crazy shit. Like it devolves into basically racism, and people like, oh, well, you're from a different country, or you're, of a different race. you don't deserve it. It's like, damn, man, it's like watching. I go back to The Road, man. It's like watching The Road, just how, or Last of Us, just how quickly everything devolves into nonsensical
People
bullshit.
de-evolve to their, not de-evolve, they just show their true colors. They go to their primal instincts when
Yeah, Bill says that
crisis
later on.
situations like that. Everything is out the fucking door or out the window.
Very much.
I can't say everybody's like that, but a lot of people are, especially when you get a group of people together. Mass hysteria, that sounds
It's
a
a
bit
thing.
like, like, oh, something that you don't use. That is absolutely a thing. You see it in small, even like not in these crazy crisis situations, but yeah, I mean, if you've been out to clubs and bars as much as I have in another life, you see people get worked up, and you look at it afterwards, especially, and you're like, if there weren't 10 other people around, would this have happened? I don't think so. I mean, there's just people hype each other up, and it's mass hysteria, and these kind of things happen every day. It's just when you add in death, fear of death, it gets a little, or fear of no toilet paper, not being able to wipe your ass. People get crazy.
No.
They get real crazy.
Yeah, look at any bar
Right.
fight that's broken out or any school fight, like that chanting in the background of, fight, fight,
Yeah.
fight. That's all it takes, and it's ridiculous, dumb shit.
Mm-hmm.
One other real quick thing that was kind of interesting, and it came up on I think it came up on Wikipedia. They actually they put this episode into production quickly because JFK was talking about how, if you could get access to a shelter, you should. And then not that long after that, the 2 weeks after the episode aired, the crisis escalated and construction on the Berlin Wall began.
Here, man, it's
because
a
everybody
powerful
was
tool.
afraid of the Berlin missile or Berlin crisis of
Oh,
1961. Apparently,
crap. Berlin crisis of 1961.
yeah.
And that's right in there with the Cuban Missile Crisis too, which would have been in 62, I think, or 63.
Khrushchev, whatever he
Nikita
was.
Khrushchev.
Yeah, he was, which he's shown up on Twilight Zone before, but
Yes, he
Yeah,
did.
he didn't show up in this one.
he's
But he
driving
was
in his
like
car.
he was threatening NATO and JFK with nuclear warfare if they didn't like back off, I guess, or whatever was going on there. I don't know all the details, but thermonuclear war. So yeah, this is a very topical. I think it was very topical for its time when it came out. Obviously, like you said, they rushed it. I think it's topical now, but for same reasons, but different backdrop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could look at any decade and have this exact same issue, because you look at the Cold War, you look at the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was in the Cold War. You look at what's going on now. There's always an approach where, some moron, some fascist dictator, whatever, decides that they're going to approach this with bombs or cyber warfare or any of these things nature, and who ends up collapsing. Not the people who started it, the people that are affected by it, like us, that are affected by the situation. That's exactly what happens here. The nature of the radio station is just the catalyst for these people to go out of control. And, that's like, look at, as bad as it is, look at Dark Knight Rises. You saw what happened when like all hell breaks loose and everything kind of falls out of control. And I don't know.
Crazy.
It's interesting.
It's crazy because we see something like this, and I think this is the kind of situation we usually think about with these like world-ending situations, like nuclear warfare or some type of bomb situation. But I hate to keep going back to more recent events in the past few years, but we found out the saddest thing of all for our little civilization is they don't need to drop a bomb. They just need to take over Charmin,
Basically.
Scott, and like, I mean, something that simple. Take that modern convenience away, and we're just like, kill.
Can you imagine if there was a pulse bomb or something like that went off and we lost all our technology? Like,
There's some days I'm kind of like, it wouldn't be so bad.
Well, it's honestly, the thing that seemed, and this is kind of sidetracking a bit, but the worst thing that people seem to lose, when the pandemic hit, was the ability to have control over daily life stuff. That loss of routine for so many people was like,
it's still
it was
bad
more
today.
than well, it is still, but back then, like, it was more than detrimental. It fucked people up hardcore, like beyond what you would expect,
Here, and I mean, in other countries too, but especially in more free countries, we're not used to somebody telling us what we can and cannot do, as far within reason.
Right,
But like just in our day-to-day lives of like going to the store and things, that we're not used to people telling us we can't, which sounds really spoiled, but I mean, we're not used to people saying no, you can't leave your house. It's like, what the fuck, you can't tell me that. And people lost their fucking minds over that.
I have a
I
friend.
was cool with it. I don't like leaving my house anyway.
There you go. I had a friend that was in Dublin, and they were only allowed, like, he couldn't leave his place for probably 3 or 4 months. And if they did leave, they could only go within it was like half a mile, like 0.3 of a mile or whatever. Like it was a small radius.
You go somewhere like Russia, and they're probably like, we do this all the time.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Well, I'll tell you, this is going to sound stupid, but I remember when they shut down movie theaters and when they finally opened them up, that Russell Crowe movie, the one where he's like
Unhinged.
the killer. Yeah, Unhinged.
Yep.
Opened
so
up,
good.
and I was so excited to fucking go back to a movie theater that it was like, it felt so alien because we had gone so long without that kind of stuff that we're so used to. It's crazy.
First thing I saw was, I know we're derailing a bit here, but the X-Men movie.
Oh, the New Mutants,
Yeah, that was the first thing I saw. Then I saw Unhinged. Well, I saw both of them.
No, Unhinged was the first movie to come back after the pandemic. Yeah,
I guess I saw it after. I didn't see it when it first came out then, but I saw the X-Men movie, or New Mutants was the first one I saw in theaters. But that Unhinged movie, it was so good. I don't know if it would have been as good if I hadn't like left the house in so long, but
right.
I remember loving that movie.
Okay, so back to the actual episode, because I mean, it's been a good discussion, but somebody gets punched in the face in this episode, and they decide ramming doors, and they decide Jack Albertson has a change of conscience, and he decides he's not going to take little Charlie Bucket's gold ticket. He actually is coming to some conclusion, and then Marty comes to a conclusion, and then what's his face, the guy who do we say he looks like?
John Hannah.
John Hannah.
Yeah, John Hannah. And he punched him in the face, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna find our battering ram. I'm like, a battering ram? Where the fuck are you gonna find a battering ram?
Did they explain that? And because they were all like, oh, so and so somewhere.
No, they said someone. Yeah, they said, oh, we'll just explain to them we need it for reasons. I'm like,
but who has a fucking battering ram?
It feels like they tore down a light pole or something.
Oh well,
I don't like to talk about the fact, but I do. So
we're not going to talk about your toys tonight, Triv.
You know what? Piss off. And you're just jealous.
I am very much. All-American Challenge battering ram. Can we talk about this battering ram, by the way?
They probably tore down a light pole or something.
A light pole, it looked like a fucking it looked like a pole you one of those
it looks like the pole you attach to the walls. The wall thing where it looks like something you attach to the concrete the walls to keep them steady as you're trying to put the walls together or something like that.
Yeah, if
I don't know, like did a house did a building fall down when they took it off, or like what the fuck? I don't know.
More than likely.
That's the explosion.
Beat the fucking door down, and I was like, well, I mean, the first hit too. They hit it, and it like fucked that door all up with like one hit with this little skinny pole.
Well, okay, so yeah, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, a bomb shelter with a door is going to be probably as thick as maybe the president's vehicle, like that type of thickness, or maybe thicker, just because it needs a
vault.
Yeah, like in fucking Matinee, that bank vault door that they had in that. But I understand that there's a budget for a TV show, but there's nothing more hilarious than a TV show where, as we'll talk about this, where a battering ram that looks like it's made out of wood. And I put this down in my notes, that door is basically like a set of stairs or a folding chair from WWE, from wrestling.
Oh,
because
100%.
that thing collapses with 3 hits of a fucking battery ram with 2 people controlling
it. It would have been better putting like a wood door. That thing was
solid wood door back in the day would have been pretty hardcore.
Yeah, like an oak door. That's what or something like that. Some thick ass wood door like I had on my first house when I was a kid. You ain't beating that fucker down. Yeah, that piece of shit door he had. Yeah, that bomb would have gone. I mean, that right there was like all credibility out the window. You're all dead no matter what.
Even the 3 little pigs are pissed. They're like, man, this is what the fuck you doing? God
That
damn, you didn't read our
door
story?
made of hay would have been stronger.
Right?
Yeah,
But I mean, like,
haven't they seen Blast from the Past?
No,
they watched
wrong
Matinee.
era.
But I
Well,
mean, like, did that like really bother you guys? Like, really deter you from the episode, or was it just something that felt like it was just a slight oversight on their part that they didn't? Maybe in the '60s it felt more or less comedic than what it does to us in
Well,
2023.
I'm gonna say, because like we said, and like the history tells us, the reason that this was rushed into production was because of everything that was going on. They were saying, hey, put these shelters in. I don't think shelters were, first of all, shelters have never been super common. It's not like, I mean, you have some in some places, but it's not like you find bomb shelters everywhere or anything like that. So I'm going to say that it was just like the writers and everybody didn't really know the ins and outs of a shelter or put that much thought into it, that, oh, this door is going to be like 5 foot thick steel or something like that. It's just a door. And I mean, it's like a metal door. They broke it down. I mean, maybe it just wasn't as common. Now we think of a shelter and we're like, oh, it's ironclad, But back then, maybe it wasn't as common knowledge. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, to some extent, I think too. Like,
But
if
they
you
did
look
go
at
wrong.
any sets from that era, like someone goes to knock on the door and the whole wall shakes. I think that
Yeah.
there is that I don't know.
But they're supposed to give the illusion that you can't break it down.
Right, but you know what I mean. It's like people understand that those are sets.
Yeah, it didn't. To answer your question, it didn't detract from me. I mean, yeah, I thought of it and I was like, haha. But 1961 TV show, the point that's not the point that this door came falling down. It's that, because even if the door hadn't broken down, even if they were just beating the shit out of the door like madmen, and then the same exact thing happened, and then he just opened the door, it would have been the same situation. Maybe not quite as, oh my, tense right there at the end, because they weren't getting through, but just the fact, the point is the same. I think everybody felt
There is that suspension of disbelief, I guess, is what I was trying to think of.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's it really is just to serve a purpose of these guys will do whatever it takes. Everybody's gone insane and they're willing to destroy everything to try to save themselves, which is understandable. You want to try to save yourself in it's like the whole idea of like, I don't know, being behind a wall or something like that, and everybody's trying to claw their way in and they're being attacked by zombies or some shit. You want to find a way to survive the situation, and it's understandable they do what they do. It just it does the mist situation where it's gone to a point where it's going to happen. The situation happens, and then it's like the kid or somebody says, they bring the radio and it's like, oh, everything is fine. It was just a bunch of satellites. And it's like in the mist when he shoots the kid and someone's semi-girlfriend, and you're just like, oh fuck. And they're like, oh fuck, why did he kill those people when the army was just right there? And it's just like,
spoilers.
Fuck it. It's a 20-year-old movie. Fuck them. No, okay. Spoiler alert, people die in the mist. No, but the one thing I do like is that nobody actually died. Someone got punched in the face, but no one actually died. But it was the thing that makes this the kind of the Twilight Zone is the simple fact that, or it makes it realistic in a lot of, because this is a very realistic episode. Excuse you. Is the fact that once everything is cleared and everybody realizes that they're safe, it's like they all want to go back to normal. And what do? They want to throw a block party. They want to pay for his door.
Hell yeah, they do. They're all the fucking psychopaths. They're like, let's forget about that, guys. Let's just, hey,
let's go back to normal. I'm sorry, Marty. I didn't mean to punch you in the face.
Yeah, everybody's cool with it because they were acting like fucking psychopaths. The people that weren't acting like psychopaths are like, nah.
Yeah.
Well,
you were off my Christmas list.
We're moving out of this neighborhood ASAP. We're gonna move to the country, and we're gonna have animals.
We're moving to Maple Street.
Yeah, we're gonna have animals, and we're gonna build our own hydraulic systems. Screw this. Screw people.
We're moving to a theme park with a cat.
That's what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Said, screw this.
We're moving to a farm with bogs all around us, like in Walking Dead.
We're moving to a prison. I actually wrote. I tried to write word for word what Bill says at the end, which is kind of poignant because he looks defeated. He just looks sad. He just realizes that he's like, we went through this traumatic event, and all you guys want to do is go to a block party. He says, damages. I wonder if anyone has any idea what those damages really are. What we really like when we are normal, the animals, naked wild animals. And it's not word for word, but he says, crawl at the neighbors just for the privilege, spared a bomb, but where they destroyed even without it.
Yeah.
And basically what he's saying is, you guys we all devolved into these animalistic urges and animalistic problems. And then, we're at our most like vulnerable and naked and like, animalistic and stuff like that. But even though there was no bomb, it still has ruined everything, and just everything is never going to be the same. And
the effect was the same.
Yeah,
the idea behind a bomb is to destroy a society. They didn't even need a bomb.
Nope.
Yeah,
the society was destroyed. Because I mean, how do you go back from that? You're still the guy who was trying to kill me and drag me out of my house to take my fucking bomb shelter.
Oh, make a bomb shelter totally moot in the process.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, it's like perfect example. And these movies got worse and worse. Or actually, they didn't get worse and worse, but it's the Purge series. Birdemic too. Yeah, that's another travesty of a situation, especially 3. But no,
the Purge series got better and then got worse.
So did Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a soft spot in my heart for Fast and Furious.
I'm sorry. No, but in all honesty, the Purge is a good example because one night of the year, everybody can kill whoever they want, no qualms. But then they go back to being normal, and there are points in that series of films where they discuss the whole idea, like the people are so traumatized by what happens, but all of a sudden these people go back to being normal. It's like, how do you go back to being normal after that? And there are parts where the series devolves into like it's a 24/7 purge or whatever, but that's the same thing here on a smaller scale. It's just once the travesty happens, nothing is ever the same, and that's just the unfortunate nature of a apocalyptic event or an event like this that causes chaos and destruction. I mean, look at like right now, with everything that's happened, the pandemic and everything that happened with the recent, mobs and stuff like that. Nothing's the same. Nothing has been the same since the pandemic, and nothing will ever be the same after that. It's weird how we try to be normal, but it's not. We're never going to be normal. It's never going to.
What is the line about the genie? Once a genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's what I say every day when I get out of bed.
Oh dear God!
I tell that all the time. This genie's out the bottle. Go putting it back in now.
So is that like a red rocket kind of?
Put it in your bottle.
I'm gonna go just over here because that don't need to have any part. That's great, but I don't really need to be around to see anything.
That's like when you say once you see a Neil Breen film, you can't ever go back.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
I don't know. Maybe it is.
It is.
It's some okay stuff. As long as you're not looking at Neil Breen's, chicken nuggets, you're in good shape. Hard to avoid, but if you can, it's a better experience.
That's like when you watch what's that movie series, Human Centipede. You can never go back.
God. Oof.
But your expression is actually correct. Once you open that can of worms, that genie in the bottle, shit just never goes back. Yeah.
I wonder what Bill and his family did. Did they stay in
I would have moved,
just like get real quiet and not really hang out with anybody anymore?
Oh, I can tell you what happens. There's a sequel to it. So the family moves. The father becomes a writer, and they move to this house. Father finds some tape reels. And uncovers a mystery where the kid kills the parents. So yeah. And you may or not get that joke. So anyways.
May or may not be Ethan Hawke.
Huh? What? Oh man.
Okay. So with that said, Triv, I'm gonna go to you first because I'm really interested. So you insinuated that you may have not liked this episode when you first started talking about it, but what did you think overall of this? I'm just saying, like, just the way is. Anyways, what did you think overall of this episode?
Number 64.
See, I told you.
Kidding. I'm
surprised you didn't say number 3. Actually, you know what? the way we've been talking tonight, there's a good chance this is going to be it could be a number 3 for all we know. So we'll see how that works out. But no, in all honesty, what did you think of this episode?
I love this episode. I think it's fantastic on every level. It is I mean, we've talked about it. It kind of is poignant across the board, and one of the most realistic things that we've run across, and we've had some pretty like realistic episodes to this point, that it managed to capture that terror and to see the different levels of people and where they sit as everything devolves, and just how it starts and everybody's, joshing around and all jolly and goofy. And I think that the opening of this has more goofy people than any other movie to this point, even something like, Most Unusual Camera. And then all of a sudden the turn is just immediate. When shit goes south, it goes south fast. And then that same switch is flipped at the very end, and they're like, "Oh, come on, it's okay. We'll make up for it. It's everything's better. We'll just bury the hatchet,
playing.
But it's that that that
Take
oh well,
backsies.
they go back to the
No,
they go
take
back to the idea of, oh well, we'll just have a block party. That's kind of what I brought up before, is not being the thing that you need to do. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's such an interesting dynamic and a psychological study in people.
I agree.
Yeah.
No,
No.
I did. I really liked this episode. I thought it was great. I thought it didn't have any lulls, like LUL, not LOLs, but it had.
How about LULs?
Yeah. Even though I knew what was going to happen, because I remember this episode, that's new.
Yeah.
I still was captivated, riveted the whole time, and I thought it just had a lot to say. And admittedly, I thought I had a lot to say years ago, but now, especially now, it is extremely topical, and it is much more affecting now. I mean, of course, you look at it through the lens of this is not a nuclear bomb, just some type of imminent threat. Yeah, everybody just loses. I love the psychology of it, like Triv said, of how people, your best friends in a crisis situation, just suddenly become, we become the animals that we are. Self-preservation, that's all that matters. And I really like how they displayed that. I thought the performances were all good. There was nobody who was just like bad. Yeah, there's some 60s TV performances here or there, but they're all really solid and really good. I thought it went out of its way to make some points that didn't necessarily have to be made, but needed to be made to make it as affecting as it was. And also, I feel like a lot of TV or even movies of that era wouldn't have, like the whole thing about, the woman or the wife kind of losing her shit, and then him making a point of saying, that's why that kid right there, that's why we got to keep our shit together. I feel like that's not something you would have seen a lot back then. Not to say people didn't feel that way, but just in film and TV. And I really like those little details like that they threw out there. And how even like Bill, he has every fucking right to say, told you so, to every one of them motherfuckers. But even when he's helping the guy out the door, and because he like drops the water can and he helps him and the guy comes to his senses for a minute, he doesn't do that. He doesn't say, he's like, hey, you need to go do this, you need to go do that. He even says at one point, get to your shelter, your basement. Get somewhere safe. You need to go get safe. He's not like, fuck off, I told you so. It shows that they are compassionate to them. These are their friends and family. They don't want this to happen, but it just is. And it's not right or wrong. There's nothing they can do about it. And I really like how it didn't frame him as just, because that's another animalistic instinct, is to, haha, told you so. He never does that. Now that was really good. I just really, really like this episode. And it is absolutely in top 19 for me. Just saying. But
hey, this is kind of a real quick random thing, but we didn't do the outro.
Oh no, I'm getting there. Don't worry. I just wanted to get through our. Yeah, don't worry. I forgot. I haven't forgotten. I'm sorry. Okay,
you should be.
Ultimately, though, what I'm trying to say is, I thought this was a great episode. There's a reason I remember it, and now I remember that reason. This is just a really, really solid ass episode. It does have a twist in the end, but even references it in the outro.
Yeah, even Rod Serling says there's like we'll get to that.
No moral. Yeah, it's not a moral, like, ironic twist of fate. It is an ironic twist of fate, I guess, but it's not your typical Twilight Zone.
Yeah, there's
ending,
no
but it's
UFO, there's no human beings controlling alien
yeah,
robots or
but it's
people being
extremely satisfying.
Yep.
yeah.
It's still a very satisfying ending, and it has a lot to say. Now that whole monologue he does in the end that essentially says bombs didn't drop, but they might as well have. The damage was still done, and they
Yeah.
still not they, but we were still destroyed. I thought was really prolific and really just that was deep. That was deep,
Yeah.
and I'm happy
You
that
know-
the show, because I feel like other shows or movies or what are stories could tell the same story pretty much the same way, but they wouldn't go into that side of it. They would show the people going crazy and like, yeah, the whole thing about how, oh, we're all good friends and family, but then they go crazy. That's nothing too insane. But to have that insight in the end to where he's like, we can never go back. Like we said, can't put the genie back in the bottle. You guys did this. This happened. Now we all see each other like 100% now. So yeah, the bomb didn't need to be dropped and the damage is done. It might as well have dropped because the same thing has happened. And I thought that was really that's the part we wouldn't have gotten in other tellings of the story, especially in the day. And I think that's great. That's awesome. I fully understand why this episode is in a lot of people's top whatever lists. Why it's one of the most people view it as one of the top episodes.
Yeah, here's how I look at it. I am continually surprised by the Twilight Zone, even if I've seen the episode before. Going back with a critical eye of the episodes really gives you a great understanding of how ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, how almost like foresight ability Rod Serling had, but he was able to, as I've said before, his daughter talks about just his views and logic of the world, just how he is able to just break down human emotion and human ability and just human nature in general. And that's why episodes like this, even going into it, hearing how good it was, it still surprises me because it just shows you that even a series that is 60 plus years old can find ways to just integrate into your life. And I'm interested to see where we'll put this, but this would be as of right now, as this current ranking list goes, this would be a top 5 episode for me because it's how powerful of an episode it is. But we'll talk about that. But yeah, it completely just amazes me how it keeps surprising me with how most of 99.5% of the time it's just amazing how it works. But yeah, with that said, let's do closing narration.
No moral, no message, no prophetic tract, just a simple statement of fact. For civilization to survive, the human race has to remain civilized. Tonight's very small exercise in logic from the Twilight Zone.
Civilized, that's the word.
Oh, I thought you said titillized.
Well, yeah, I mean titillized.
I didn't see how that worked in, but any opportunity to say titillized, I'm cool with it. But yeah,
it should be our lexicon word that we forget about that was actually not in the episode, but it was in our lexicon.
Well, maybe titillized shows up on that cake.
It's a very titillized episode.
But yeah, it's crazy. Like I said earlier, it continues to astound me and shows why I love this episode, and glad that we were able to get people like Dan to start watching the series, because I think if more people watch these episodes and actually kind of took in the kind of context of what he's doing, maybe they would learn something a little too or something. But I mean, maybe I'm just optimistic like that. So
I mean, Dan needs to learn a couple of lessons because he blew up my theater.
yeah, but the second time wasn't his fault.
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
Yes.
I thought it was by mistake.
Everything's Dan's fault.
Everything is Dan's fault.
Yeah.
British Dan is the reason for all bad things.
Yes.
He's gonna listen to this episode. He's like, son of a bitch. Blow it up. Blow it up again.
He better not.
No. But with that said, that is season 3, episode 3, The Shelter. Very, very good episode, as we all agree. So with that said, let's head into the last segment of our podcast, which of course is the Twilight Zone ranking list, the greatest ranking list ever known by man. And maybe we'll be one day in a shelter that we can't break open and change numbers like Jacob wants to with number 19. So anyways, I've already said it. I would put this above Walking Distance underneath Obsolete Man, but I will lead it to you. What do you guys think?
Number 3.
I know what she's
I mean,
doing.
we're really close here. We're really close at this point, but
I think it's
can't
better
put it
than
above-
Monsters.
Do you really?
I do.
Like, in all honesty, do you?
Yes, I do very much. It handles that same situation in a much better way, I think, because it's
I'm-
You don't have a kid
people.
eating ice cream. Well, you do have kids eating cake.
Yeah,
I'm not-
exactly.
I'm not like being an ass or being funny, or I do too.
You
I
like kids
love
eating cake?
Monsters on Maple Street or do on Maple Street, but I think that I agree with Tripp. I do, especially since these two are so similar. I do think this is
Yeah.
the
You know what's
stronger story.
you know what's sad, and I'm going to agree with you guys on this.
Yeah.
The thing that kind of we'll go with me first on this is I would always put Monsters Do on Maple Street above, but if we're breaking this down, the ending of the Monsters Are Doing on Maple Street, as potent as it is a little goofy with the aliens, like
Yeah.
the antennas coming out of their heads. I understand it was the 60s. I understand what they were going for, but I think this episode is so realistic and what it's trying to do is so scary. See, the other problem is there's the Obsolete Man, which I think is a more potent episode. I don't know.
That bomb in the end of the absolute man, though. No, what really set this one over the top for me was, like I said a minute ago, for me, I think the episode would have been great without this insight. But that insight in the end of his little, where he's like, "Nope, this is done," which was the point of the whole episode. We find,
Yeah.
that is what really put this one over the top for me. That is what made it more than just a neat little ironic story and more of a, oh shit, that gets you to thinking. He's right, and it, especially after what this world's been through in the past couple of years, dude. Yeah, it doesn't take much to make people just de-evolve. And I think he saw that in 1961. Sadly, we haven't changed that much.
Well, and they haven't changed ever. I mean, I think
No, people are people.
And humans have great capacity for both incredible good and incredible evil. I mean, that's all of us.
People have been more or less the same since the beginning of time.
Absolutely.
You boil us down, so.
No, but I have to ask this, Jacob, and I know you're probably going to say no, but I honestly think this episode's better than The Invaders.
You're just being mean now.
Hey, you guys are wanting to put it above one of my favorite episodes. So I'm being honest. Like, do you think this episode could be better than The Invaders? Just honestly. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not just saying this because The Invaders is my favorite. I mean, that might be why, but no. I mean, I think that I do think that sounds really selfish of me, but they're two very different episodes for sure. I mean, but I still think The Invaders, I feel like, and once again, I can't harken back to 20 years ago and say this one, I think is very prolific and it had a lot to say. And I love the things it had to say, but I knew even 20 years ago, there's not going to be bombs. And I kind of knew that, which isn't the point of the episode. But I think with The Invaders, I did not know that's what was going on until the very end. So it was kind of like, oh shit. So I mean, for me personally, I mean, you guys have your own opinions and we'll talk about it. But for me personally, I still think The Invaders is just a touch above this one. But once again, they're also two very different episodes. And I know me sitting here, it sounds so selfish. I'm like, no, it's not better than mine, but it's better than yours. But the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is so similar to this one in the idea. Hell, I think
it's like the Monsters Do on Maple Street Part 2, that type of thing.
It's not even, it's like another telling. It's like if we gave the idea and the whole situation to two different writers and said, tell us a story about this basic outline, and this is what we ended up with these two. I mean, I would totally believe that if that's what happened.
Absolutely.
But me myself personally, I mean, and that's your opinion, that's fine. But I don't think it's better than The Invaders. No,
I would have to agree with that. So the thing that made Invaders just insane for me was the fact it was a one-woman performance.
Mm-hmm. With no dialogue.
all of and in a small space. It's just a different level. And not to say there's not, like, the top 10 is full of amazing stuff, but I do think that it does say something where one person using, and I know that doesn't necessarily just speak to the nature of the story, but I think that it's kind of different level when it comes to that. So,
and I know I talked about, and we're talking about this episode, but another part of that with the invaders. And but let's be real, we're talking about top 5 episodes here, so they're all great. But one of the things about the invaders I always thought was so neat, and another one, you in the end of it, you just realize all these things at once, and it's like, oh, this, oh, blah, blah. Like she never
How'd
says
that
a
go
word.
again?
Just like, blah. Yeah, she never says a word the whole episode, but you don't even notice it. Like subconsciously, you just don't realize she has not been speaking. It's not until the very end you're like, oh shit, she never said a fucking word that whole time. She makes noises, but I mean, because they're not on Earth, she's not human, so she's not speaking English. But she never says a word, and it works. And you don't recognize. Well, I didn't recognize that until the very end when the whole reveal came out, and it was like, oh. And it was like an orgasm, but
there was the orgasm.
Exactly.
that's the beginning. That's the cool down period. You get the oh.
I know what's going to be in the what Nick is going to send out later in the week.
I do like a face.
Yeah, just a shot where it's like,
that's my new thumbnail. I mean, that's me. That's we're a 3-man team, 3-person team. I do not think it is better than the Invaders.
All right, so I have to say this before we Lamont Johnson directed The Shelter, 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, Nothing in the Dark, One More Pallbearer, Kick the Can, 4 O'Clock, Hocus Pocus and Frisbee,
Damn.
and Passage of Lady Anne. I don't know that. So, yeah.
Was this his first? Wait, was this his first one?
I think it's a home run for first episode. I think,
definitely.
Fuck yeah, it is. And I know that one of the other ones you mentioned, I don't want to say which, but it's coming soon. I remember being good. We talk about it often, but I remember that. Huh?
The trash can episode?
Yes. I remember that episode being good. I could be totally. I could watch
that episode is memorable just on the twist ending at the low. It's like the episode where like the two are running around the town and you find out it's like children's play toys or whatever, like in
like
or whatever.
And I fear that. I fear that it's going to end up being like that one episode I used to always reference where they're not on Earth
from the sun.
Third from the sun. Like the end of that was like, whoa, so good. But
no, 5 characters. Like, 5 Characters in Search of an Exit is really well done overall. It's like a really thought provoking episode, really kind of scary in a lot of respects. But back to this episode. So I hate you people. So we put this at number 3.
We're hated.
Yeah.
We'd still let you into the shelter unless the door is shut. Then we wouldn't let you in. But
well, okay, we're putting it at number 4 because you guys are gonna lock me out of the shelter.
Gosh, I got the key, bitch.
Yeah, I know what you're gonna do with that key. You're gonna
That's
swallow
right.
it.
That's right.
Make me do some kind of fucking Saul shit or something like that to get the key out.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, whatever.
All right, I think that'll work. I think we're good on that. So, with that said, you assholes, and you we got enough assholes on the ship, that type of thing.
Still in the top 5.
So with that said, The Shelter is of course new number 3, right above my favorite episode. Sons of bitches. No, I'm just kidding. Number 3, The Shelter. Number 1 is still Eye of the Beholder. Number 68 is still The Trouble with Templeton. Jacob, I know you're excited 20. For this next. Yes, number 20, entering a new decade.
We have moved it into another set of denomination of 10. It is slowly moving up. My master plan is working very slow.
Yes.
But Jacob's favorite episode is coming up, which of course is season 3, episode 4, which is called The Passerby, directed by Elliot Silverstein, written by Rod Serling, stars James Gregory, Joanne Linville, Warren Kremlin. This is known as episode 69. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Woo, woo.
Yeah. So I'm sure I'm sure there will be very many talks about this.
We can go ahead and do the ranking now. Number 1.
69.
Or man. Oof, we want to put it at number 69. And that's like an honorary number of number 1, but
well, and just hear the way that Serling talked about this episode, it'd be a good vacation.
Yeah.
In the Twilight Zone.
Right. Yeah, he went full tilt bore on this episode, but on episode 69. But anyways, with that said, we'll look forward to that next week. All right, guys, let's head out. That's enough of talking about the shelter. Let's go into our own shelters and think about life and toilet paper and Uranus cups and stuff like that. So, Triv, you're a person with a almost rebuilt theater. I hope. I don't know if your theater's almost
Nope.
rebuilt or not.
It's just still rubble.
Still rubble. Well, she's still living out of that barrel. So, Triv, when you talk in that barrel, you have that content in that barrel. Where can they find your content in that barrel?
Well, me and my poor killer pineapple are currently living in a barrel down by the river. Anyway, you can find me on YouTube at Trivial Theater. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at Trivial Theater.
Jacob, you have content. I know where it's at, but maybe people don't know. Maybe this is the first episode they've ever listened to. I don't know. Jacob, have at it. Tell us where your wares are at.
I has YouTube. You can find me at Jacob Anders Reviews, where I do movie related content sometimes. I have some new content that I'm thinking about doing that I'm going to put up there coming soon, but I also have another new type of content that's coming very soon. I'm actually working out this weekend. Well, actually, by the time you see this weekend would have already happened, and I will have more lots of stuff to announce. So when you see this, I would have just announced a bunch of stuff. So go to my channel and watch my announcement video. And I'm also going to have a stream and a video probably will be dropping right about the time that you're watching this.
Nice.
If you're watching it when it first came out. If you're watching it in 2 years, hopefully I've done more videos.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully by then my theater
100,000 plus subscribed. Probably not.
Yeah, in 2 years, Jacob has at least done one video. We can promise that. So
Yay.
We will be on season 4 by that point.
Exactly. Yeah, it's gonna take us a year, probably 6 years to get through season 4, I'm sure. But
I may be at that time in 2 years. If you come to the newest episode of The Fifth Dimension, I may be sitting here going, so this week I've been working on this new video. I promise I've been saying it for a while, but it is coming soon.
But with that said, you can find my content at Movie Emporium. That's where I host all the content. I did reviews for like Mario Brothers and Air and all that good stuff. So anyways, we're also on audio feeds like Anchor and Audio Boom, and it comes to Uranus, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, all that stuff. Rate, subscribe, get us, all the listens you can. But for myself, Triv, Jacob, and the lot of people who come on and guest host as well, we'll see you guys next time in the Twilight Zone, people. Peace out, motherfuckers. Shit.
Nick, we can't hear you.
I was trying to think of a way to fuck with him doing that. Every time he does that, I'm like, how can I play this? I should just go, yeah, I mean, maybe.
Oh man, I would have laughed my ass off if you.
Dude, you were talking about you were talking about sex crimes that you committed against goats.
No,
oh my god!
I mean, I did watch The Man Who Stares at Goats, so I mean, you never know.
That's a terrible.
Yes, it is.